Hello, and welcome to this presentation that's focused on the observation assignments for ECHD 2430. You will do 6 observations at the UTC Children's Centers. For the observations, you will only need to take with you an observation notebook, something to write with, and highlighters if you would like to use them. You do not need to take other things to the Children's Center, and in fact, there's really not a good place to keep book bags or backpacks or purses. And you shouldn't take those into the classroom because children might want to look through them. There's really no place that they can guarantee that these would be safe, so you might want to leave these in your car. I would like for you to have an observation notebook that you use only for your observations so that it doesn't get mixed in with other things. Now, I've decided that I'm not going to take up your observation notebooks at the end of the semester. Although if I read something interesting, I might ask you as individuals to look at your raw observations. For that reason, and for your own convenience, I think you're best served by a notebook that doesn't have other things in it. Also, I don't really care what kind of notebook you use, whatever's convenient to you. Some folks like spiral bound notebooks, some on the sides, some on the top, some big, some small. Whatever is your preference. Each day you go in to observe, each of your 6 days, you should begin a new sheet. This will help you to see where your days begin, and it would help me too if I do decide to look at your notebook later. So instead of starting where you left off, begin each day on a new sheet in the notebook. Here is the way to set up the page for your notebook. The type of observation we're going to do is a running record observation, and this is a type of narrative observation. You'll see in the main body of the page several paragraphs. Each begins with a timestamp. For example, the first says 12 o'clock. Here's the observation event number 1. Write it in paragraph form. Make sure you have the timestamp. Skip a line, and then there's another event observation. I'll describe events in just a moment, but I also wanted you to see that there's a place to put the date on the first page of each new observation. Remember, each observation day is going to start on a new page. Page numbers at the bottom, if you could just number your pages sequentially. Begin at 1 and keep running throughout. Don't restart the page numbering each day. And in the margin, you can write your own notes. That's because the main body of the notebook in a running record observation should be only subjective, which we'll talk about a good bit in this presentation. Notes to yourself or your interpretations or beliefs you can put in the right margin. For example, let's say that you are doing your first assignment, which is focused on large motor, but you see something you really want to look back at later when you write a cognitive assignment. You could put yourself a little note there to remind yourself later to look back at that. The running record observations are separated into events. Events are any change in a person, place, or thing. It's like a noun. For example, if 2 children are playing on the floor with some blocks, and one of the children gets up and leaves, and one child stays, that's a change in person, so you would begin a new event. If the 2 children were playing with blocks and they begin playing with a game, that's a change in thing, so you would begin a new event. Or if another child joins them, that would also be a change in person, so you would begin another event. Or if they get up and move to the sand table, that would be a change in location or place, so that would start a new event. Anytime a person or an interaction changes, or there's new material or new locations, skip a line in your notebook and start writing a new event. Now, a little bit of this is up to your discretion. For example, if 2 children were running around the playground and they ran from the slide to the jungle gym, then that's probably not a change in location, even though they physically moved. It's probably still the same event. So how you define the events ultimately is up to you. But they provide a convenient way for you to make your observations manageable and to make an observation of a manageable size. The goal of a running record observation is to take as much detail as you can in real time as the action unfolds. This is a type of observation that gets much more depth than any other type of observation method. It's important. The second major goal for running record observation is to record as much detail as possible. Use descriptive words. You can note at the beginning of the section the context in which that behavior occurred, the time, the place. The example here is the block area during free choice time. Be careful not to record anything that you do not see. For example, we can't see what someone is thinking or what someone is feeling, their emotions or perceptions or motivations. Record only behaviors that you can observe. Here's an example for detail. In this example, the observer recorded, M was on the playground. He jumped 3 times. Now, imagine that we ask 5 people to act out this event. They would all probably act out something that looked very different. They might jump straight up and down. They might keep their feet together or apart. They might bend their knees or not. They might jump forward. They might jump back. They would probably come up with a variety of ways in which this could have looked. And so this example doesn't really have enough detail to tell us how to reenact that event. Next, I'm going to show you a very detailed observation, but I don't want you to panic here. This example has a great amount of detail, and I'm showing it to you not to say that I expect you to have this level of detail, especially when you begin, but to show you the types of detail that you should aim for. These are some elements that you might record. So don't panic. You'll get more detail as you practice. You're not going to be able, especially at first, to get all the detail in this next example, but it's there for something to aim for. The trick is to think about what kinds of information that you could include that would help a reader to sort of paint a picture in their minds of what you observed, that would help them to act it out more accurately. So in essence, the more detail, the better. In this observation, it says M was on the playground. With both feet together, he bent his body down to his knees. His knees bent to about a 45-degree angle. Keeping both feet together, he jumped up about 8 inches. He landed with his knees still bent, his right foot touching the ground a second before his left foot. Now, if we ask people to act out this example, they would look a lot more like each other than if we had just said M jumped 3 times. Details such as the bent knees, the 45-degree angle, that the feet were together, how high he jumped, that the knees were bent when he left, all of those add to our understanding. And although you might not get every piece of that detail, as much elements as you can add, the more detailed your observation will be. Here are some more examples. The examples of he decided to go to the snack table, or he walked to the snack table because he was hungry, or he looked at the snack table and saw no one was there, so he walked slowly to the snack table, are all being subjective. These include aspects that we can't observe. We can't see what someone decided or thought or saw. Remember to record only what you see. Your description should be an unbiased factual report. You should be able to ask yourself, how do I know this? And then answer, it's exactly what I saw and heard, and it's not my interpretation of what the behavior meant. Some more examples. She was angry at the child who knocked down her block tower. She was upset, so she ran to the teacher across the room. She was happy when she arrived at school today. Remember, you can't observe a person's feelings. Record what you see. For example, instead of saying she was happy when she arrived at school today, describe what it was about her that made you think she was happy. She was smiling. She was whistling. She was giving a lot of eye contact. She was bouncing up and down. Whatever it was that made you say, oh, this child is happy, those are the behaviors that you should record. Another example is child A does not like child B. How do you know that? Because we can't see another child liking someone. What we see is a behavior that we think means the child does not like the other. The statement that child A does not like child B is not an observation, but it's a judgment or an assumption. Instead of recording that, we should write the behaviors that led us to make that judgment. Consider this observation. Child A was building a tower out of the large wooden blocks in the construction area. Child B wandered slowly into the area, smiled at child A, and said, "Hi, A, that's a pretty big tower. I'll help you make it really big." With his right hand, B reached out for a block. A frowned, and her face reddened. "No," she said in a loud voice. "You go away. I'm building this tower by myself." A stood between her tower and B, with her arms spread out at her sides. Does that observation mean that child A doesn't like child B? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe the child just wanted to build the blocks by themselves. If two people observe this situation, one might think that it meant the child didn't like the other child, the other might not agree. That's why it is important to be objective and record only the behaviors we observe. Remember that you can observe a child's thoughts, only how those thoughts are acted upon. For this class, then, you cannot observe a child deciding. Do not record the child decided to eat a snack. Instead, record the child ate a snack. You can observe a child thinking. Do not record the child thought he would like to play with the blocks. Instead, record the child played with the blocks. Or the child said, "I think I'll play with the blocks now," if that's what the child said. You should also be careful to avoid labels. Labels such as stubborn, bright, pretty, dumb, passive, polite, cute, clumsy, smart, dainty, demanding, rude, shy, sweet, defiant, mean, kind, adorable, aggressive, or awkward are ways that people will summarize behavior that's really involves making a subjective assessment. These words tell us nothing very specific about what the child is doing or their behavior. So instead of using words to label a child, describe the behaviors that the child made that made you think of that particular label. Following your observation time, you will complete an assignment in which you will select some of the observation events to turn in. At that time, you should edit your observations for errors in spelling, grammar, and punctuation and use complete sentences. But in real time, while you're making the observation, you can use any kind of shorthand method that works for you. If you want to use abbreviations, if you want to use incomplete sentences, if you want to use symbols, anything like that helps you to get detail, that's fine. But when you turn in some of the selected observation events as a part of your assignment, you should edit those to make sure there are no errors in spelling, grammar, and punctuation. You should also be sure to protect the confidentiality of the child and the child's family. Do not talk about events that you observe in the Children's Center, and in your written assignments, do not use the child's name or family name. Only use initials. If you're not sure of a child's initial, you could say child A, child B, child 1, child 2. Just make an effort to maintain those names. So if child A starts off as child A, let them stay child A, because you'll confuse yourself if you start calling another child child A later on. Here's another example of detailed observations. From the observation on the left, example A, D rolls balls down different sized ramps made of blocks. Example B, D stacks 3 blocks and places a long flat board from the top of the blocks to the ground. Then she rolls a ball down the incline, watching where it stops. Next, she adds 2 more blocks vertically so that the incline is even steeper, and rolls another ball down the higher ramp. As the second ball races down the incline and speeds past the first ball, a jubilant smile fills her face. Quickly, she constructs a ramp 7 blocks high and again rolls a ball down the ramp. The second observation has enough detail that we see that the child is experimenting with cause and effect and trying out this process in new ways. And this is a great example of cognitive development in early childhood. The first example, which has less detail, doesn't really allow us to see that cognitive development and cause and effect taking place. This is an example that reminds us to avoid making judgments in our observations. The observer wrote, "The boy I'm observing, C, is playing all alone with a dinosaur in the sand. He doesn't seem to have any friends. He plays with just one dinosaur all by himself for a while. Then he gets bored and goes to get some other dinosaurs at the end of the sand area. He demands the teacher's attention, probably the only person who will listen to him. He tells her that the biggest dinosaur is the boss, probably what he wants to be all the time. No wonder he is playing alone." In this observation, the observer brought in some of their own prejudgments and ideas about the child's social behavior, and in doing so, that really shaped the way that they recorded that observation. It includes those judgmental descriptions, and this observer really missed some of the things that were going on there. Consider this second example of the same event. The boy C is sitting in the middle of the sand area, his left foot tucked under his right knee, and reaches into the toy bin and grasps a small plastic dinosaur in his right hand. He stands, leaning on his left hand to push his body upward. Holding the dinosaur, he walks slowly to the edge of the sand area and places the dinosaur to the left of two other plastic dinosaurs lined up in the wood outlining the sand area. In a loud voice he exclaims, "Now you're all here." He spins around to the teacher and announces as he points to them in lined order, "Tyrannosaurus is the boss because he's the biggest. The Stegosaurus is the next boss because he's the next biggest. The Dimetrodon is the baby. He's not very big." In this example, the observer only recorded the things that they were able to see and hear, and in doing so, by leaving their own judgments out of that situation, they were able to get the detail that allows us to see that the child was seriating those toy dinosaurs in order of size, a fact that was completely missed by the first observation. Be specific and avoid relying on vague words. This is especially true when describing quantities. Here are some examples of vague words: never, often, frequently, sometimes, rarely, seldom, hardly any, many, some, a few, several, occasionally, usually, always, or a couple. Instead of using these kinds of words, count the exact number of items or people or the number of times a behavior occurred and record that number. For example, do not record J often laughs. Instead, count the number of times J laughs and recorded that. J laughed 5 times this morning. Instead of recording D rarely smiles, you should record D smiled 1 time this afternoon. There are some problems with this observation. T and N were playing a game of tag outside on the playground. T accidentally tripped N. Now, we couldn't really observe that something was an accident. Instead, we would have to record exactly what we saw. N was angry, but he stood up and pushed T to the ground. Here, we're describing the emotion that T experienced, and again, we cannot observe an emotion. Very upset, T began to cry and ran to the teacher. The very upset is also describing the emotional state of the child. The teacher was more sympathetic towards T because she was crying. We can't tell what the teacher was thinking or why and what the teacher's motivations were, only what the teacher did. T began to cry and ran to the teacher. The teacher realized that N is sometimes an aggressive child. Here we've labeled the child as aggressive and made some subjective interpretations to what the teacher is thinking. The teacher said, "What happened, T?" T replied, "N pushed me down and I hurt myself." The teacher took her hand and walked over to N. At this point, N was very angry. Again, this is an emotion and we can't observe that, and would not look at the teacher. "N," said the teacher, "did you push T down?" N said, "She tripped me first." T said, "Well, I didn't mean to." This observation has a lot of very good detail, but there's also a couple of problems with it. L was running on the playground. She stopped running, thought for a moment, and said to the teacher, "Watch, I know how to skip." L tried to skip. Now in this example, L probably was trying to skip. In fact, she just told the teacher that she knew how to skip. But we can't record what someone tries to do, because we can't observe what someone is trying to do, only what they did. Uh, and in the following part of the observation, the observer does a great job of actually recording what the child did. She hopped on her right foot. When her right foot landed on the ground, Elle took a walking step with her left foot, stepping first on the ball of her foot, then raising up on her toe. She repeated this hop then step procedure 2 times. Then in a proud voice, Elle said to the teacher, "See, I told you I can skip." Elle smiled and happily ran to another part of the playground to play. In this example, remember we can't record what someone is trying to do, only what they're actually able to do. We will complete 6 observation assignments at the UTC Children's Center. You have registered for a section at either Brown or Battle Academy. You're not going to the main elementary school. At each school there is a preschool that's a part of the UTC Children's Center, and you're going to the preschool. You must attend the lab during your assigned times over the course of 6 weeks. You will have 6 specific assignments to complete that will be posted on Blackboard. Brown Academy is located down the hill from Hunter Hall. To go to the Children's Center, you should go to the rear door of the building, not the main door that's on the top of the hill in the front of the building. That's the main entrance to the elementary school. Remember, we're going to the Children's Center, so walk around to the rear to the UTC Children's Center door. There's no parking at Brown Academy, and the parking lot that's in the circle at the bottom there is reserved for teachers and for parents to pick up. They'll tow your car down there, so please don't park there. Walk down from where you park at UTC. Battle Academy is located on the corner of Main and Market. It's near the Choo Choo or the Terminal Restaurant. The main entrance is not on Market Street, but around the block from Market Street. The door is on Long Street. Again, do not go to the main door in the rear. That would be the main entrance to the elementary school. Go to the smaller door to the right, which is the entrance to the UTC Children's Center. At both Brown and Battle, when you enter the UTC Children's Center, there'll be a desk there to greet people. Remember that other people will probably be observing at the same time you are, so when you arrive, let them know at that desk what you're there for, and wait for other students to arrive, and they will show you what to do next. At Battle, there is parking available across the street in the gravel or on the street itself. Please do not park right behind the building in that parking lot, because parents will need that for pickup and drop off. Again, when you arrive at either Children's Center, the coordinators there will meet with you, and they would like for everyone to gather as a group. So wait there at the opening desk for everyone to arrive. Make sure that you're on time. Please wear your UTC ID. You can clip that on or get one of the plastic covers that hangs like a necklace. That UTC ID is your sort of badge, just so that you belong there. There's a sign-in book at each location. They'll show you where those are. Make sure to sign in for your time there at the Children's Center. That's your way of documenting that you're in the building. It's also important in case, for example, of a fire alarm. They need to know who's in the building. For your dress code, you should remember to be professional. You're representing UTC. The Children's Centers are model programs. There can be people from the community or from the university there, so you should look professional, but you should still be pragmatic and comfortable. You will be with children. You may be sitting on the floor to write your observations. For the purposes of this class, I do not want you to be actively involved, participating in the activities that go on in the classroom. Your role is to be an observer, and I want you to sit quietly apart from the action with 100% of your attention focused on observing. If a child is interested in what you're doing, I don't want you to be rude, but I want you to just reflect matter-of-factly that you're doing some observations right now and you cannot participate at this time. Remember that you Maybe leaning over, sitting on the floor. Make sure your clothes doesn't show your bottom or your belly or your breast or things that you wouldn't want people to see. Please no torn clothes or inappropriate words. Remember that you're representing UTC in the field of early childhood.